Hey, sleepy beloved friend. You know what? Courage has invited you to meet him at his house. Let's visit his house and sleep peacefully. But first, drop in the comments. Where are you watching from and what time is it? It feels so good to know how far this cozy community reaches. Remember, little Courage loves you. So curl up, tuck that blanket under your chin, and take a slow breath in and out. You are so loved here, so welcome, like the house lights up just because you arrived. Tonight you're our special guest on a gentle little adventure to a tiny farmhouse in the middle of nowhere. Courage, the cowardly dog's home. Imagine a warm porch light winking hello. A small pink pup peeks from the window. Oh yes, he knows you're coming, and his tail is already doing that shy, happy wiggle. He saved you a spot on the couch, a tiny blanket just your size, and a wholehearted, Courage-style marquee reserved only for beloved friends. We'll tiptoe together past the creaky door, float through the cozy living room, peek into Courage's room where the curtains breathe with the night, and wander to the kitchen where a sleepy kettle hums. And if you like, we'll even brave the friendliest basement in the world, string lights, soft quilts, and the safest hum you've ever heard. So get comfy, and tell Courage you're on your way by saying, "Ready for nowhere." He's waiting at the door, eyes wide, blanket in paw. Let's go meet him. Your visit begins when you lift your hand and rap softly on the farmhouse door. The wood is smooth and warm from the porch light. A latch clicks, the door eases back, and you're looking straight into a pair of round, hopeful eyes. Courage stands in the doorway with his ears forward and his tail swishing in small, careful arcs, as if he's trying not to wag too loudly. You smile and say hello. The pup's chest lifts with a tiny, relieved sound, and he pads backward to make space for you, guiding you in with a little glance toward the living room. The room you step into feels like someone's favorite memory. A low lamp throws a soft puddle of gold over a worn rug, and a couch that has learned 1,000 ways to be comfortable. The air carries the clean scent of cotton and old wood. Courage brushes his shoulder against your leg, then hops onto the couch and pats the cushion beside him with one neat paw. You sit. The couch answers you with a sigh you can feel in your back, quiet, accepting, like the sound a house makes when it recognizes a friend. A slow shuffle crosses the threshold. Eustace appears in his cap, lines of habit and weather resting on his face. He gives you a short nod, the kind people use when they've already decided you're fine. He points his chin toward the armchair and lowers himself into it with care, remote in hand. The television wakes to a faint glow and a soft, steady murmur. Nothing jarring, just moving pictures and a friendly hum. After a glance your way, he taps the volume button down a notch and leans back, one ankle over the other, eyes drifting from the screen to you and back again. "Welcome, dear." Muriel's voice arrives from the hall before she does, warm and bright without being loud. She steps into the living room, apron tied in a neat bow, cheeks pink with the happiness of greeting. She takes your hands in both of hers, the way people do when they've already decided to like you. What a lovely surprise. Make yourself at home. You thank her. She pats your fingers, noticing the way Courage has glued himself to your side. "He's been listening for you," she says softly, proud and fond. Courage leans into your hip, lifting his chin so your hand finds that place behind his ear that makes his eyes flutter half closed. His heartbeat taps lightly through the cushion into your palm. He relaxes in increments, shoulders loosening, paws tucking, breath lengthening, as if your touch is the last latch on a door he's been wanting to open. You tell him he's a good host. His tail taps twice against the cushion and then rests, content. Eustace clears his throat, which turns out to be his way of saying hello again. Without looking away from the television, he nudges a folded throw blanket from the arm of the couch toward you with a practiced push of his foot. You catch it and drape it over your legs. The knit is soft, washed 100 times until it stopped trying to be anything but warm. Evening, he adds, almost as an afterthought. Tea'll be on. It's not a question and not a command. Just a fact from a man who knows how the evening goes. Muriel smiles. I'll put the kettle up, she says, fingers already thinking about cups and saucers. She squeezes your shoulder before she turns. You rest. Courage will keep you company. She slips out toward the kitchen, steps light and sure. The living room holds on to the shape of her kindness after she's gone, like heat in a quilt. You settle deeper. The lamp's glow brushes your hands. Courage resettles himself so that one paw covers your wrist like a quiet anchor. He looks up to check your face for any last bits of weather you might have brought in. Whatever he sees makes him let out a little breath and rest his chin on your thigh. The television rolls through a calm scene. Someone ties a ribbon on a package. Someone laughs softly. A pair of hands turns the pages of a book. Eustace watches, interested in the way farmers are interested in rain. Not anxiously, just measuring, approving, not minding when it keeps you inside. Your eyes wander the room. A knitted square draped over the couch back, colors softened into harmony by time. A small picture frame on the side table with 2 young faces and 1 pink pup, all turned toward the camera as if toward a sunrise. A lampshade painted with tiny wildflowers, their outlines blurred and gentle in the light. The rug's pattern curls around itself in familiar loops, leading your gaze back to where it began again and again, the way a lullaby always finds its first note. Courage hops down briefly and noses at the little wooden box on the table. He returns with a soft toy clamped in his mouth, a stuffed beetle with 1 threadbare wing. He places it carefully in your lap and sits, very still, looking up at you with the expectation of a curator showing you the best piece in the collection. You touch the toy like it matters, which it does, and say it's perfect. Courage gives a little wriggle that suggests he agrees. He waits until your hand settles back on his head before he melts into you once more. Eustace glances over the rim of his glasses. Good one, that, he says to no one in particular, maybe about the toy, maybe about the moment. He scrolls channels and lands on a nature program with whispering narration and long shots of wind going through grass. The room seems to exhale with the tall meadow on the screen. He lowers the volume again, almost imperceptibly. That's how he says you're a guest, and we'll keep things gentle. You let your breathing find the room's rhythm, the low murmur from the TV, the distant tick of a clock behind a wall, the soft hitch in Courage's breath when your fingers pause, and the small, satisfied hum when they begin again. The blanket learns the shape of your legs. The cushion remembers you. You say you're glad to be here, and it feels like telling the truth to something that can hear it. Muriel passes the doorway once with a tray, glancing in to make sure you're comfortable. She catches your eye and gives a conspiratorial smile, the kind that says there's a biscuit with your name on it, and that she's pleased you came on a night when the house is in the mood to be kind. She disappears again, and the living room goes back to its natural volume, which is the volume of a cat's purr you can hear from the next room. Courage's ears flick toward every sound, then settle. Your hand maps the small geography of his head, the smooth dome between his ears, the velvet line of his cheek, the tiny rise where a whisker begins. His eyes meet yours now and then, checking, confirming, And each time he seems surprised at how quickly you answer calm with calm. He presses closer, as if there's a magnetic north somewhere behind your ribs and he's following it. The hour surrenders itself to ordinary comforts. Eustace shifts. The chair answers with a single polite creak. The television shows a field going gold under evening light. Courage yawn squeaks once, the sound soft as a zipper closing on a pocket. You rest your head against the couch back and let the living room teach your body what to do next. Nothing, and then less than nothing, until even your thoughts sit down and take off their shoes. Muriel returns to the doorway long enough to say, "Nearly there." She takes in the scene, pup tucked close, guest settled, Eustace keeping watch by looking like he isn't, and nods to herself. When she leaves, the room keeps nodding in its own way, steady and approving. Courage tips his nose to your wrist one more time, and you answer with a slow stroke from crown to shoulders. He stays very still, as if he doesn't want to spill the moment by moving too fast. The living room holds. You let it. The lamp has warmed the corner of the rug into a little square of evening. You slide your foot into it and feel your body lean toward rest even more. Courage turns, rearranges himself with the ceremony of someone fluffing a pillow, and sets his head in the new place your lap offers. The blanket shifts a little higher. Your shoulders find the shape of the couch again, as if the cushion is remembering you and you're remembering it. Eustace watches a quiet scene on the screen. A river turning in slow curves through tall grass, a boat tied to a post, someone waving from shore. He rubs the side of his nose and glances towards you to make sure the volume is right. It is. He leaves it. His presence is like a good stove on low. Steady, self-respecting heat that asks for nothing and gives what it has. A soft clink from the doorway. Then Muriel enters with a tray. She sets it on the low table with care. The cups are thick and friendly, the steam gentle. She places one within reach and meets your eyes as if to say, "There's no rush in this room. Take your time, love," she says. "You had a long day to carry." You say thank you and mean it twice, once for the cup, once for the permission. She smooths the edge of the tray cloth, looks at Courage with practiced tenderness, then at you. "He trusts you," she says simply, which in this house is one of the highest blessings. She squeezes your shoulder and steps away, the doorway catching a faint smile before she's gone. You wrap both hands around the cup. The warmth works its way into your fingers, palms, wrists, until your hands feel like they belong to your body again. Courage watches you lift the first sip and then relaxes, as though the cup has told him everything is all right. You set it back down, and he sighs in relief, not because he wanted the tea, but because he wanted you to have what you needed. The television drifts into an old black and white film with quiet dialogue and polite music. Eustace chuckles at a line that's barely funny, mostly familiar. He glances at you as if to share it, but the look you give back says you got the joke before it arrived, and he nods, satisfied. He shifts the remote aside and lets the story do what stories do best when a guest is settling in. Hold the room together gently, like twine around a parcel. Courage nudges your sleeve and you scratch under his collar where the fur is warmest. He answers by pushing the top of his head into your palm, a small insistence that says, "Don't be careful with love here." You aren't. You let your fingers move in slow circles until both your breaths match the pace of your hand. In the reflection on the TV glass, you can see your outline and his, the couch, the lamp's halo, a portrait of an evening that will never need to be louder than this to be remembered. Muriel passes the doorway again and pauses without entering, just to listen to the sound a house makes when it's resting well, She vanishes down the hall and the living room resumes its steady work. The clock in the next room keeps time without making you feel measured. The floorboards don't complain. The air sits right on your skin. If comfort had a sound, it would be the small hush of fabric when courage resettles and the small hush of your breath when you do too. Eustace adjusts the lampshade a finger's breadth, and the light softens further. He folds his hands over his middle and dozes without fully sleeping, that practiced half-rest of someone who has spent a lifetime keeping an eye on things. When a scene in the film threatens to be too bright, he dims it before it can bother you. When a commercial starts, he changes the channel to something that doesn't argue. It isn't showy caretaking, but it is caretaking. You lift the cup again, and the heat under your lip feels like an answer to a question you didn't know how to ask. Courage's tail thumps once against the cushion, and he goes still. A pulse of joy he tries to keep quiet so he won't spill your calm. You stroke the curve of his back, feeling the small ridges of his breathing. He blinks up at you, and you see the wet gleam that love puts at the edge of a dog's eye right before it closes. There's room here for silence that isn't empty. You let it grow, and it grows soft. Eustace breathes, courage breathes, you breathe. The television's gentle dialogue folds like a blanket, corner to corner. The lamp holds its pool of light. The rug holds your feet. The couch holds your weight, not as a burden, but as an assignment it enjoys. Muriel returns just long enough to place a small plate on the table and to press your shoulder again with her hand, a promise that if you ever needed anything in this house, you could say it once and it would be done. "You're always welcome," she says. And the words land with the heft of truth. She looks at Courage and then at you, the kind of look that stitches people into a family for as long as the evening lasts, and then slips away. You remain in the living room exactly where you should be. Eustace opens one eye. "Good visit," he declares, as if he's stamping the evening approved. He closes his eye again and lets the film wash on. Courage stretches, toes splayed, then tucks them back under, a satisfied curl finding the perfect angle against your lap. His breathing evens into a pattern any clock would be proud to keep. You notice the little details that prove a house loves its guests. The way the blanket's edge stops just where your hands might want to rest. The way the lamp doesn't glare off the TV. The way the cushion gives half an inch when you shift, then settles again. The way the air feels slightly warmer near your shoulders and slightly cooler at your ankles. Balance finding you without being asked. You're not being entertained as much as you're being kept warm, kept company, kept safe. The hour leans toward its quiet end. Courage sleeps heavier, the kind of sleep that only happens next to someone trusted. Eustace adjusts his cap and watches the credits roll for a moment before changing to another quiet channel. The way night turns one page to the next. The cup is empty. The plate holds the harmless evidence of something sweet. The living room breathes in its slow, contented way. A place that will remember you when you're gone and be exactly the same kind when you return. You run your hand once more along the small curve of Courage's back and feel him answer you without moving. The lamp hums very softly. The television glows in its own small square of dusk. The rug is steady under your feet. You stay a little longer because staying is exactly what this room asks you to do. Nothing more, nothing less. And in the gentle company of a pink pup, a drowsy farmer, and a kettle-warm house that knows how to be good at night, you do. Courage lifts his head from your lap and gives a small, hopeful wiggle, then slips to the floor and looks back at you. You rise, keeping the blanket around your shoulders, and he pads ahead down the short hallway. The living room's glow fades behind you. A row of family photos passes at your shoulder, smiles caught mid-laugh. A pink pup front and center like a proud button. Courage noses open a door near the end of the hall and waits, ears up, until you step through. His room is small, tidy, and warm in that particular way a room becomes when someone has loved it for a long time. A narrow bed sits beneath a window with thin curtains that move the way breathing moves. A low shelf holds a parade of treasures, a ribbon, a smooth pebble, a bottle cap polished by thumbs, a folded drawing of a farmhouse with a big, friendly sky. Against the opposite wall, on a little desk, a bulky computer waits with a faint green light glowing at the power button like a night star. Courage hops onto the desk chair and pats the seat with his paw, offering it to you. You sit. He places one paw on your knee and, with the other, pushes the mouse. The screen wakes from black into a soft blue that fills the room without being bright. For a heartbeat, you catch your reflection there. Blanket, quiet eyes, the curve of Courage's shoulder leaning into you, and then the desktop appears, a plain background, a handful of careful folders, and a single sticky note on the corner that reads, in blocky letters, "Remember to breathe." The cursor moves under Courage's paw in a careful circle. He double-taps a folder named Good Things. It opens to a neat grid of small squares. Each one is a memory. He noses the first. Muriel at the sink, turning with a smile that reaches her eyes. Then another. Eustace on the porch with a stubborn nail and a more stubborn hammer, finishing the job he said he wouldn't start. A third. The front yard after rain. Sunset pooling in the puddles like copper. Courage watches your face as each one fills the screen, checking that you see what he sees, that you feel what he felt. A little icon in the corner blinks. Courage taps it, and the computer types a line across the bottom in a simple serif font, as if it prefers to speak gently on nights like this. Welcome, guest. Diagnostics. Room temperature perfect, heart rate settling, companionship optimal. Courage glances up at you, proud of the report. The next line appears. Recommendation. Remain exactly as you are. He opens a folder called Notes. There are only a few, each named with the kind of titles people give to important thoughts. When scared, count the gentle things. People are softer than they think. You don't have to be brave to be loved. Courage taps the last one, then looks at you, then taps it again as if to underline it. You read it twice quietly, while the monitor hums like a lullaby at the edge of hearing. You place your cup on the desk where a ring of older circles shows you're not the first to rest here. Courage slips off the chair and noses around the room, then returns with a small, frayed toy and sets it by the keyboard, as if to upgrade the computer with comfort. He climbs back, more careful now, settling with his front paws on your thigh so he can watch the screen with you. The computer detects him and types another line. Secondary user detected. Courage the Courageous. Status guarding. Courage opens a folder named Stars. It's a simple set of images. The same window you see now, photographed at different seasons. Constellations sketched over with a clumsy digital pen. Next to Orion, someone has scribbled Muriel. Over a cluster near the horizon, another label reads, Porch Light. Above the top of the frame, in the empty space where no stars were caught, a single word hovers. Home. Courage taps that one and then taps the window with his paw, as if to say, the sky is here too, inside this room if you want it. The computer screen dims a little, switching to night mode on its own. Letters soften. Whites become the color of bone china under lamplight. A small text box appears and the cursor blinks as if waiting for thought. Courage presses a few keys with the seriousness of a captain sending a message across the sea. The letters don't make a word, but the intent does. He looks up. and you answer by resting your hand on his back. The cursor stops blinking. The computer obliges with one more typed line. Message received. He noses the mouse again and opens a folder titled For Guests. Inside are simple comforts saved like recipes. There's a scan of a handwritten list from Muriel, extra blanket in top drawer, spare socks in basket, hot water bottle under bed if chilly. There's a single photograph of Eustace, younger, standing behind the tractor with the shape of a smile he didn't mean to let anyone catch. There's a 2-sentence document that reads, "If you're here, your family, take the softest seat." Courage hops down and pads to a small bed, pats the coverlet twice and looks up. You slide from the chair and sit on the edge, the blanket pooling over your knees. He climbs beside you and fits himself into the space your lap makes when you're not trying to be tall. The computer screen, left to itself, begins a slow slideshow of the stars folder, long exposures where the farmhouse roof is a black cutout against a sky that looks both quiet and infinite. The room receives the light and gives it back in a calmer shape. On the shelf, the treasures become characters. The ribbon is a victory flag from a day that ended better than it began. The pebble is the weight to keep small notes from blowing away in a draft. The bottle cap is from a soda shared on the steps after a complicated afternoon unraveled into laughter. The folded drawing is a map. Front door, living room, kitchen, Courage's room, all labeled with arrows like a child's instructions to get back to love. Courage noses the edge of the drawing until it slides forward, then taps it with his paw. He wants you to unfold it. You do, and inside you find a new addition in pencil. A little dot just inside the doorway of this room, labeled you, and cross-hatched, very dark, as if to say, this spot is important. Courage holds your gaze as if asking whether the map is accurate. You nod. He relaxes so fully that his weight changes the mattress a fraction, a permission your body takes as its own. The computer, pleased with the quiet, adds a small, almost playful line near the bottom of the screen. Sleep protocol available. Subroutines. Steady breath, warm pause, safe thoughts. It does nothing more than offer. The room does the rest. Your breath lengthens to match the rise and fall of the little body tucked into you. The curtain lifts and settles with the tide of a night breeze. The desk's green light watches like a tiny lighthouse that never gets tired. Courage slips away long enough to tug open a drawer. He returns with a neatly folded handkerchief, spreads it beside you with a seriousness that makes you smile, then places his toy beetle on it, as if setting a ceremonial guard. He rests his chin on your knee, eyes shining in the low light. You scratch the soft place just behind his ear and feel him melt from the inside out. The computer's slideshow reaches a photo taken from this exact bed on another night, another quiet, and for a moment you feel layered with all the evenings that have ever been gentle here. From far down the hall, the faintest clink suggests Muriel is rinsing cups. The house knows how to keep sound small when this door is almost closed. Eustace is a steady shape somewhere in the living room glow, chair settled into its angle, television turned down to a whisper. Their presence doesn't intrude, it completes the diagram. The farmhouse holds all of you the way a hand holds water, carefully and with respect. Courage climbs back to the chair for a final demonstration. He opens a tiny program that looks like a notepad and types, one key at a time, a line you've already felt since you arrived. You are safe here. He looks at you until you read it out loud in your head. He taps the return key and adds in smaller letters, "Stay as long as you like." His paw hovers over the keyboard, then retreats, as if to avoid overcrowding a truth that doesn't need more words. He clicks the little moon icon in the corner. The screen fades from the slideshow to a dim, warm color. The green power light stays on, softer now, a promise rather than an alert. Courage shuts the drawer with his nose, returns to the bed, and tucks himself in that exact place that feels made for him and, somehow, made for you too. Your hand answers him without thinking, fingers finding their way along the familiar curve of his back. The room narrows its attention to simple work, keeping you warm, keeping him close, keeping the night easy. Outside the curtains, the nowhere sky does what skies do best when you're not watching. Moves slowly, stays vast, minds its business. Inside, the computer hums the smallest sound. The desk holds your cup until you remember it again. The shelf keeps its parade of little victories, and the bed carries both of you without comment. Courage blinks the last blink of a pup, ready to drift, and lets out a quiet breath that seems to settle the air molecules one by one. You match him without trying. The computer's mouse light flickers once, as if nodding goodnight, and becomes still. The line on the sticky note might as well be written on the walls now. Remember to breathe. The door remains cracked, just enough for the house to listen in and approve. Courage's paw finds your wrist, a gentle loop closing, and the room arrives at its true size, just big enough for a bed, a desk, a shelf of small miracles, a faithful computer, and two beings learning the same lesson at the same speed. You let the lesson finish its sentence, and the quiet takes it from there. Courage lifts his head from the pillow and gives a soft, purposeful wiggle, then hops down and noses the door with a quiet push. You follow him into the hallway and the air cooler for a moment, the floorboards sure under your feet. The glow ahead is the kitchen's. It spreads along the wall like a sunrise on wood. Muriel's already there, sleeves rolled, apron tied neat, steam beading on her glasses as she leans over a heavy pot. The smell meets you first, warm, savory, the kind that makes shoulders drop without being told. She looks up, eyes brightening. There you are, love. Her voice lifts the room another degree. Perfect timing. Courage trots in, taps his paw twice on the floor like a polite knock, then points his nose toward you, proud to have delivered the evening's guest. Muriel smiles at the two of you as if this is exactly how the night is supposed to go. She lowers the flame until the stew murmurs, then tips the lid just enough for the steam to sigh. Potatoes, carrots, a ribbon of onion, something that's been simmering long enough to be kind. On the counter, butter softens beside a round loaf with a split golden back. A pie cools near the window, lattice catching the kitchen light like a small net for sweetness. Sit a moment, she says, nudging a chair with her hip. You do, and courage slips under your knees and leans against your shins, a warm, steady weight. Muriel spoons the stew, slow and certain, into thick bowls that keep heat the way quilts keep stories. A sprinkle of chopped parsley flickers green across the top, a small celebration. She sets 4 places on a tray. 2 large bowls, 1 medium, and a shallow one with a paw print stamped in blue at the rim. For our gentleman, she says to Courage, who pretends not to preen. Footsteps drag up behind you, familiar as the creak of the back step. Eustace pauses at the doorway, sniffing once like a man checking the weather. "Smells right," he declares. He tips his cap toward you in greeting, eyeing the tray with the appreciation of someone who knows a good thing when it's right in front of him. "Bring it through. Film's decent." Muriel fits spoons alongside the bowls, adds a small plate of buttered bread, and tucks napkins in the gaps like folded notes. She glances at you. "In the living room, then. We'll make it cozy." She balances the tray with practiced hands. Eustace steps forward without being asked, and takes the pie plate to clear the path. Courage prances a small circle, then steadies, waiting for you to rise so he can lead as if the hallway were a parade route. The living room receives the food as if it were expecting it. The lamp glows warmer. The couch seems to sit up straight. Eustace sets the pie on the side table, clicks the television down to a gentle murmur, and shifts his chair to open a square of space in front of you. Muriel lowers the tray to the low table. Steam lifts. The room smells like a story you wish you'd been told sooner. You take your bowl. It fits your hands as if it knew them. The first spoonful carries heat to your mouth and the day out of your chest. Carrot sweet, potato soft. Broth rich without trying. Bread tears with a tender sigh. Butter glosses the edge and slides into the stew like a promise. Courage sits very tall beside his shallow bowl until Muriel nods. He lowers his head and begins with the etiquette of a small prince. Small laps, careful pauses, eyes flicking up now and then to make sure this is really happening the way it's happening. Eustace leans back, bowl in one hand, spoon in the other, ankles crossed, attention split between the film and the steam. On the screen, a town drifts by a river. On the chair, a farmer drifts by the edge of a smile. "Been a while since stew landed this good," he says, which in his language is high praise. He gestures at the loaf with his spoon, and you pass it without a word. The movement fits the night like the last piece of a jigsaw. Muriel settles at the end of the couch, tucking her skirt under her, bowl balanced like she's played in this orchestra a long time. She watches your face after the next bite, not for compliments, but to see if the food is doing what it's meant to do. Put light back in your eyes. It is. She nods, satisfied. There we are. Courage finishes half his bowl, sits up, and leans his cheek against your knee, stew warm and grateful. You brush your knuckles along the curve of his head. He blinks slow, then returns to the work of eating with a sigh of contentment that could season any meal. Eustace clears his throat and shuffles the remote until the picture dims a shade. The film obliges, turning twilight on the river into night. Between spoonfuls, the small sounds of a lived-in room stitch themselves around you. The spoon taps the bowl's rim with a soft bell of content. The couch breathes when you shift. The rug whispers under Eustace's boot when he sets it more squarely. Muriel's spoon scrapes the last of the potatoes from the bottom of her bowl with a sound that somehow says, everything is in its right place. She rises to refill from the kitchen and returns with a kettle tucked in at her side, steam sketching a veil in her wake. Cups appear the way helpful things appear in good houses, exactly where your hand expects them. She pours, not asking how much, stopping at the moment the cup looks right. The tea's warmth climbs your fingers and settles along your wrists like a shawl. Courage sniffs your cup politely, then returns to his bowl, licking the last crescent clean and sitting back as if presenting the dish for inspection. Muriel passes him a small scrap of bread dipped in broth. He takes it with careful teeth and a gratitude that wags his whole body from the inside. Eustace leans forward and sets his empty bowl on the tray with the measured care of a man strengthening a bridge with each plank. Good, he says again, a verdict, an amendment, a benediction. He tips the remote toward a softer channel. Music and picture downshift into something with long, steady scenes, lanterns on a quiet street, a window with curtains that move like breath. Your second bowl comes with less hurry and more noticing. The parsley's fresh edge, the way the broth coats the spoon in a thin gloss, the way bread soaks and holds until it dissolves at the touch of your tongue. Courage migrates from his place to the couch edge, paws tucked, chin on your thigh, full and still, eyes half-mooned. You can feel the minute pulse where his jaw meets his ear, a small drummer keeping time with the lamp. Muriel returns the tray to the table, sits again, and folds her hands in her lap, not because the work is done, but because the next work is to sit and be with you. She asks how the road was, not nosy, just opening a door. You answer in short pieces, and she listens in a way that takes the weight and sets it on a shelf you can't see. Eustace listens without turning his head, the way weather listens to fields. He hums once at the right moment. Muriel squeezes your forearm with her fingers, a yes that doesn't need words. The pie arrives after a pause that respects fullness. Slices find plates, plates find hands, forks find their way with the muscle memory of celebrations. The crust is tender enough to give it the touch, the fruit inside holding its shape like a memory that's been kept carefully. Eustace eats his slice as if anything sweeter would be a scandal. Muriel eats hers like someone remembering a summer day. Courage, told he can taste, receives a tiny corner with the solemnity of a medal, then licks his lips once and resumes his position as guardian of warmth. The television shows a porch with a light left on. The room echoes it. Eustace lowers the volume to nearly nothing. He shifts, and the chair creaks in a way that approves of the evening. Muriel stacks bowls on the tray, but doesn't take them yet. She knows the moment benefits from not leaving it. You finish your pie and set the fork down with the simple satisfaction of having exactly enough. Courage stands, stretches, and places both paws on the couch beside you, asking without words for the space your arm can make. You make it, and he moves into it like water into a glass. His breath warms your sleeve. The house seems to pull its walls in a fraction, not smaller, just closer, like friends around a table after the last story has been told. Eustace glances over. "Good visit," he says again, but softer, as if stamping the night official. The television obliges with a closing scene. The river by starlight, a boat untying itself, drifting a little, but never far. Muriel pats your knee and gathers the tray with the timing of a person who knows how to leave a room better than she found it. "I'll be in the kitchen," she says, which means, "Take your time." She slips out. Eustace adjusts the lampshade with one finger. Courage settles heavier, the kind of weight you only get from trust. The living room keeps its warmth without asking you to do a thing. Outside, the nowhere night is wide and quiet. Inside, you share the last soft minutes of the meal with the people and the pup who makes this house know how to be home. Then you follow Courage down the stairs, one gentle step at a time. The air is cooler here and friendly, smelling faintly of clean wood and a hint of apples. A soft glow hangs from the beams, warm as candlelight. The furnace hums a calm note that feels like a steady hand on your back. Courage looks up at you and smiles with his whole face, eyes bright, tail swishing like a tiny metronome of happiness. He pads ahead to a quilt spread across an old trunk and noses it toward you, as if to say, "This spot is perfect." You sit. The quilt knows your shape and remembers your warmth. Courage leans against your leg, and the world loosens by one easy knot. You stroke the curve between his ears and feel the rise and fall of his breath. He lets out a soft sound, content and round, almost a purr for a dog. In the glow of the lights, his whiskers look like little silver threads. He turns in a small circle and nestles by your side, making a nest from your lap in the quilt. The furnace hum settles into your ribs, and the sound seems to breathe with you. You draw a slow breath in and a slower breath out. The string lights above you are lazy fireflies, and their hush lets your thoughts grow softer at the edges. Courage hops up, taps his paw on the lid of the trunk, and gives you a hopeful look. You lift the lid with a friendly creak. Inside there are treasures arranged with care. A ribbon, the color of the evening sky, a smooth button that feels cool at first and then warm in your palm, a pebble shaped a bit like a tiny heart, polished by countless thumb rubs, a small tin with a hand-drawn heart on the lid, and inside it, a handful of tea leaves smelling like celebration. Courage noses each item in a proud tour, as if introducing old friends. You return everything to its place, and he beams with quiet pride. He points his nose toward a mug on a nearby crate, and then toward a kettle that sits on a small hot plate humming to itself. You pour water over the leaves. Steam rises like a thin, friendly veil. The scent travels through the room like a smile spreading across a face. You cradle the mug in both hands. The heat seeps into your fingers and then into your wrists, and it feels like a gentle promise that everything is all right. Courage watches your first sip with solemn attention and then does a delighted wiggle when you nod that it is good. You pass the mug down for a small sniff of approval. He sighs, pleased, and curls closer, as if the mug keeps the same quiet company as you do. A little radio sits on a shelf, the kind with a round dial. You turn it gently and find a station that plays a soft tune. The melody is unhurried, like clouds drifting across a summer pond. Courage sways his head to the rhythm, then steps his paws forward and back in a shy dance. He looks to you for encouragement, and you move one foot, then the other, the simplest steps. He mirrors you. Forward, back. Forward, back. He throws in a tiny hop that is more joy than step, then looks surprised at himself, then proud. You laugh softly, and he nestles his face into your knee for a moment, as if to hold that laugh close. Together you build a small fort in one corner. Courage drags a light blanket by one end. You lift it to drape between two boxes and the edge of a beam. The blanket becomes a canopy, and the lights above shine through the fabric like a mild constellation. Inside the fort, the air feels extra quiet, like the hush within a shell when you hold it to your ear. You and Courage crawl inside. He settles so that one paw rests over your ankle, a gentle anchor. You can hear the calm thrum of the furnace and the faint whisper of wind somewhere far above. It feels like the house itself is breathing slow and kind. You find an old shoebox tucked inside the fort. The lid lifts to reveal slips of paper folded into simple shapes. Stars and boats and little hearts. Each one has a word written in soft pencil. Courage noses one that says kindness, another that says safe, another that simply says home. You line the shapes in a row and nudge them until they are exactly how Courage likes them, which is how you like them too. You fold a new star from a blank slip and write the word rest. Courage watches, head tilted, then taps the new star into the center of the row. He approves. The tea is warm and easy. You sip and breathe. You lean your head against a pillow and close your eyes for a moment. Courage keeps watch with the quiet seriousness of a small guardian. When you open your eyes, he is still there, eyes soft, ears relaxed, the tip of his tail moving with a sleepy rhythm. He looks up toward the lights as if noticing them for the first time again, and the glow answers with a gentle shimmer. Courage pulls a tiny sketchbook from under the trunk with both paws and offers it to you. You open to a blank page. The pencil is short and fits perfectly in your fingers. You begin to draw the string lights above you. The lines are gentle, unsure at first, then certain enough. Courage places his paw gently on the page and leaves a soft print. You outline it and add a small crown over the paw because he is the king of cozy places. He barks once, quietly, as if surprised that a bark could come out so soft. He tucks his chin on your knee again, and you draw the curve of his back, the roundness of his eyes, the slope of his ears. The drawing is not perfect, which makes it more real. Courage looks at it for a long time, then touches the paper with his nose and blinks, storing the moment somewhere deep and warm. You close the sketchbook and slide it back where you found it. Courage finds another treasure, a tiny music box with a hand-wound key. You twist the key slowly. A lullaby spills out, silvery and patient. The notes float through the room and ride on the hum of the furnace. Courage closes his eyes halfway and lifts his face, as if catching each note on his whiskers. The tune loops, soft and familiar, and each repeat feels like a blanket, tucked a little tighter around your shoulders. You open a small wooden crate and discover apple slices wrapped in wax paper, still fresh with that clean orchard scent. You share them with Courage, who takes each piece carefully and chews with mindful joy. The sweetness lingers on your tongue, and the tart edge wakes up the back of your throat only long enough to make the next breath feel cooler. You both lick your lips at the same time and smile at the timing. The crate holds a small napkin embroidered with a single flower. You lay it on the trunk and set the mug there, and the whole scene looks like a tiny picnic under indoor stars. Courage sits upright and tells you an entire story with his face. He points his nose to the lights, then to the trunk, then to the fort, then to you, then he wiggles. You understand every word. This is his favorite place. He is happy that you are here. He is happy that it is quiet. He is happy he has a quilt, and a friend, and apple slices, and a tune that never hurries. He is happy in a way that makes you feel brave without needing to be. You place your hand over his heart and feel that it keeps a steady time, not too fast, not too slow, just right for the world you are in together. You lie back on the quilt. Courage stretches along your side from hip to shoulder, a warm stripe of comfort. The lights draw pale shapes across the ceiling. They look a little like distant fields, a little like gentle rivers, a little like the softest handwriting. Your breath moves like those rivers, in and the light draws close, out and the light spreads gentle and thin. Courage shifts, so his head rests on your shoulder, and his ear is soft against your cheek. You feel the warm weight of trust. He gives a tiny huff, as if agreeing that this is all very good. The radio music fades and returns, a feather on air. The notes do not insist on being heard. They just exist, like moonlight does. Courage sits up and does another small dance, forward and back, then a twirl so small it is almost just a thought. He bows and looks at you, eyes bright with humor. You give a little bow in return from your seat, and he stifles a proud little grin. He taps his paw twice on the floor, and you tap your fingers twice on the trunk, and suddenly there is a secret rhythm only the two of you know. You explore another corner of the basement. There is a shelf of jars with soft pencil labels. Buttons, twine, feathers, smooth stones, marbles that hold tiny worlds. Courage selects a marble the color of early morning and rolls it into your palm. You hold it to the light, and inside it feels like there is a pocket sky. You roll it back to him, and he chases it a short distance, then very carefully taps it back to you, like a gentle game. Back and forth, easy, uncompetitive, pure. The marble clicks softly against the wood, and the sound becomes part of the music box tune, part of the hum, part of the night outside. There is a stitched banner hanging from a beam. The letters are not quite even, and that is how you know they are honest. Courage looks at the banner, then at you. The message feels clear even without reading. You are welcome. You are safe. Stay as long as you like. He reaches up with his paw and pats the banner once as if to make the words true again, and you nod because they already are. You both build a small tower from empty wooden spools stacked by size. The tower wobbles and steadies. Courage breathes very slowly so as not to topple it. You do the same. You set a button on top like a little moon. The tower stands there for a while, proud and improbable. When it finally leans, Courage catches the button with his paw and hands it to you like a treasure retrieved from the air. You both gasp in the smallest way and then smile as if you planned it. Time stretches the way warm taffy stretches, long and sweet, without any pull. You listen to the house whisper above. You listen to the open quiet below. Courage yawns a delicate yawn, and you feel it echo in your own throat. You nestle back under the quilt, and he slides against you again, a perfect fit, like a word finding its sentence. The tea sits cooling to a perfect sip. You drink, and the world smooths at the edges once more. Courage brings a little book with a cloth cover and sets it in your lap. The pages are blank and somehow full. You trace the first page with your fingertip and think of soft grass and cloud shade and the scent of clean laundry. Courage watches your face and sees everything you are thinking. You turn another page and think of late afternoon sun on a wooden floor, of a sandwich wrapped in paper, of a bell that signals nothing urgent, only that it is time to come home. He nudges the edge of the book with his nose, and you both know the story is already written without words. He leads you back to the fort. You crawl inside together, and the blanket glows with the reflected lights. The world is smaller here, which somehow makes it all feel bigger. Courage rests his chin on your forearm. You count the breaths you do not need to count. The air is cool and kind, the quilt warm and steady. The music box twinkles from a distance, and then becomes only a memory of itself. You feel the floor, the quilt, Courage, the glow, the hum, your own chest, and they are all part of one larger, softer thing. You drift and return and drift again, like shoreline foam that never worries about where to settle. Courage wakes enough to adjust his paws, then sleeps again. You smooth the fur along his back, and his breathing matches yours as if to say, yes, this is precisely right. The house keeps watch. The night keeps time. Your heart keeps the exact rhythm of ease. You wake a little to the feeling of a tiny tap at your wrist. Courage is inviting you to see one more corner. You follow him to a small table where a lantern sits with a wick turned very low. He looks at it and then at you, and you both agree it is lovely exactly as it is. On the table rests a bowl of smooth stones with painted shapes. One looks like a shell, one like a leaf, one like a star that remembers summer. You place the leaf near the fort and the shell by the mug, the star in the middle of the quilt. Each small act settles the room in a way you can feel in your shoulders. You return to the trunk and lie down again. Courage circles and curls into the hollow of your shape. He tucks his nose against your sleeve, and the warmth there spreads through him and back into you, a loop of comfort with no beginning and no end. Your eyes are heavier now, the good kind of heavy that invites the world to hold you. The lights above blur into friendly halos. The hum vibrates at the edge of hearing, and then inside the hearing, and then below it, a foundation rather than a sound. Sleep comes closer like a careful friend who does not rush. Courage sighs, and the sigh says, you are home enough to rest. You let your hands loosen. You let your jaw loosen. You let your shoulders fall, not down, but into belonging. You and Courage drift together. If you wake for a moment, you find the same scene waiting and the same ease ready to settle over you. You move half an inch, and the quilt adjusts like a cloud finding the perfect shape. The night is wide and still, and yet here in the basement, It feels like a small room inside a gentle pocket of the universe. Courage breathes. You breathe. The house breathes. Nothing is demanded. Nothing is missing. Quiet collects in the corners the way light does, generous and soft. Your last waking thought is a simple one. This is good. This is safe. This is home. Courage agrees without a word, and the two of you fall into a sleep that is whole and kind and deep. You and Courage climb the stairs together, slow and easy, the quilt trailing a little, like a cloud behind you. The living room opens in a warm hush. Muriel is already there in her favorite chair, a halo of lamplight around her knitting, eyes soft the way windows look when it's gently raining. On the table, a pot of tea waits as if it knew you were coming. Courage's ears perk. His tail draws small half-circles on the rug. Across the room, Eustace sits with his hat tilted just so, a newspaper held high like a little wall. He ruffles the pages with a grand rustle, the kind that says he intends to be unimpressed by anything cozy that might be happening in his house. Courage takes one hopeful step toward him, pauses, looks back at you, then pads quietly to your side, shoulder pressed to your calf, brave in a small way that only the kind notice. Muriel looks up and her face brightens. "There you are, dearies," she says, voice warm as bread just out of the oven. "I've kept the tea hot. Sit, sit." She pats the sofa and you sink into it, the cushion greeting you like an old friend. Courage hops up and curls neatly by your thigh, careful paws, careful heart. Muriel pours and steam rises sweetly, carrying a promise of honey and chamomile. She sets aside a small saucer with a little swirl of warm milk for Courage. He noses it politely, but waits for your nod before tasting. He is working very hard at being perfect. Eustace snaps the paper a little higher. "Huh," he mutters, as if the sound itself is a sentence. Courage flinches and then steadies, chin lifting a fraction. You feel his breath, and in that breath is the entire basement's quiet courage. Eustace tilts the page to one side so he can look over it with a single eye. "Dogs on the sofa," he declares to the world, to the lamp, to the page. You turn your head and meet his gaze with all the softness you can hold. "Be kind," you say. Not a scold, not a command, only a simple invitation. He's been brave tonight. He's family. The words land like a blanket folded once and set down gently. Eustace freezes for a rare second. The paper wavers. The lamp carries the smallest shine across his glasses. A heartbeat passes, then another. He folds the top of the newspaper down, exhales through his nose, and something in his shoulders loosens. He peeks at Courage again, and this time the look is different. Curious the way a door is when it's just thinking about opening. Muriel smiles into her knitting, a little glow escaping the corners of her mouth. "There's plenty of tea," she says, which is also her way of saying there is plenty of love. Eustace inhales, switches hands on the paper, then lowers it with a slow surrender, as if laying down a shield he doesn't quite remember why he picked up. He clears his throat. The room listens. He grumbles softer now, almost embarrassed at the sound of his own grumble. "Well," he says, "if he's family, family gets tea." He stands, the chair sighing in relief behind him, and shuffles to the table. His movements are awkward and tender at the same time, like a big coat trying to learn how to hug. He lifts the pot and pours into a second cup. The stream is steady, careful, a little ceremony. He adds a ribbon of honey that catches the lamplight and glows. He sets the cup in front of you as if returning something you didn't know you lost. Then he reaches for the saucer of warm milk and, without thinking too hard, tips the pot just enough to let one drop of tea meet the milk and blossom there like a small amber flower. He stirs with the back of a spoon until the swirl looks like a sleepy galaxy. Courage watches with round, astonished eyes. Eustace pretends not to see the astonishment, and pretends even harder not to enjoy it. He carries the saucer over, kneels with a careful creak of knee and floorboard, and sets it down. "There," he says, almost gruff, but the word softens as it leaves his mouth. "For our courage." He says the name like he's trying on a new hat and finding it suits him. Courage waits for your glance, receives it, then takes the smallest sip. He pauses, surprised by the sweetness, and then laps slowly, politely, as though drinking is a way of saying thank you. Eustace's face does a strange new thing. The corners lift. It starts like a mistake and ends like a choice. He reaches out, hesitates, and then commits, scratching lightly where Courage's ears meet his head. Courage melts under the touch, eyes half closed, the picture of trust. Eustace clears his throat again because sometimes joy makes a person shy. Muriel brings a plate of simple biscuits and sets them within reach. "Share," she says, and the word lands in 3 places at once. You break a biscuit. Eustace breaks one too, smaller than he used to, gentler than he remembers being. He offers his piece, and Courage takes it carefully, teeth as polite as a thank you note, crumbs on a pink tongue, pride in an old pair of hands. You sip your tea and feel the warmth move through you like light moving through water. The house seems to change with every breath, not into something else, but into itself more fully. Eustace lowers himself back into his chair and folds the newspaper in a tidy square he doesn't open. He glances at Courage, then at you, then at Muriel, and the room returns the glance with interest. He tries on a sentence. "Saved us, that dog," he says, as if testing a story's first line. More than once. He looks at Courage again, and the smile, now sure of itself, returns. "Good dog." It's plain and true, and it pours through the room the way the honey poured from the spoon. Muriel leans over and pats his sleeve, proud of him the way the sky is proud of the horizon. "There we are," she says, and the kettle, though already off, seems to agree. Eustace reaches for another biscuit and holds it out, not to be taken, but to be shared. Courage looks between the biscuit and Eustace's face, and then places one paw on Eustace's knee, just enough weight to say, "I'm here." Eustace huffs a little laugh that sounds like a cupboard opening to the smell of cinnamon. He breaks the biscuit again and hands you a piece. Then Muriel then keeps the last bit for himself. He raises it in a tiny toast. "To the dog," he says, and then, after a heartbeat, "To Courage." You clink your biscuit gently to his. Muriel joins, and for a second, the 3 small sounds make a beautiful, funny chord. Courage's tail draws a soft rhythm against the rug, keeping time for your little ceremony. Eustace shifts, leans forward, and straightens the quilt over your knees, the gesture so practical it almost hides how tender it is. He tucks a corner under Courage's shoulder, making sure the dog is warm. The hat on his head tips, and he leaves it unbothered, a man who has set something down he didn't need to carry. He picks up the newspaper again, but only to find a comic on the back. He reads a line, snorts at the punchline, then reads it aloud in a voice that pretends to be disapproving and fails delightfully. Muriel chuckles. You laugh softly. Courage makes a sound that is not a bark and not a hum, a small bubble of happiness rising to the surface. Eustace hears the sound and reads another line, and this time he aims the smile directly at Courage. It suits him better the second time. The room drifts into that golden hour that isn't on any clock. Muriel pours another round, light as a blessing. Eustace adds honey without being asked, a little more than before, as if measuring kindness by instinct. You lean back and feel the sofa hold you. Courage curls between your legs and the sofa arm, tucked into the soft geometry of the moment. Eustace reaches over and with the gentlest forefinger draws a little circle on Courage's forehead, a habit he didn't know he had until right now. The circle says stay. The circle says safe. Muriel begins a quiet tune under her breath, the sort of melody that tidies a room's heart. Eustace pretends not to know it and hums along anyway. He sets the paper aside for the last time and smooths the rug with the flat of his palm, calming even the floor. He looks at you, and there is a new steadiness in the look, a kind of agreement about the world. Thanks, he says, simple as a door that opens on well-oiled hinges. He doesn't say for what, and he doesn't need to. Courage sighs, the happy kind, and tucks his nose under your hand. Eustace picks up the pot and tops off Courage's saucer with another warm swirl, then pauses to add one more drop of honey, the last little bit that changes everything. He watches Courage drink, and the watching itself is a kindness. He sets the pot down, sits back, and lets his smile rest where it belongs. You finish your tea, and the quiet settles like a soft snowfall, each flake a little act of gentleness. Muriel folds her knitting and places it beside her, proud of the small, patient rose. Eustace leans his head against the back of the chair, eyes at half-mast, content in a way that makes him look younger without erasing a single line. The lamp glows. The house breathes. The three of you drift in the same warm current while Courage, loved from all sides, drifts right along with you. Eustace reaches out one last time and scritches that perfect spot behind Courage's ear, the one that makes the world dissolve into yes. Good dog, he murmurs, not to be heard so much as to be true. The words pour from him the way the tea did, and once they're out in the open, they keep the air warm. Muriel smiles, you smile. Courage smiles in the way dogs do, and the living room holds all of it. The kindness, the tea, the softened newspaper, the new habit of love. You lean back and let the moment finish its own sentence. The house agrees. The night nods, and together, all four of you settle into a peace that the lamp keeps like a promise. When the cups are nearly empty and the lamp has settled into its soft halo, Muriel smooths her apron and stands. Her smile is the kind that tucks corners of the room in. You feel it on your shoulders like a shawl. Eustace clears his throat and puts the newspaper aside for good, not folded like a wall anymore, but like a placemat set for welcome. Courage blinks up at all three of you, tail making quiet half-moons on the rug. "Come along, dearie," Muriel says, and her hand is warm on your elbow as you rise. Eustace lifts the teapot just to make sure, gives Courage's saucer one last generous ribbon, then sets the pot down with a satisfied nod. He looks at Courage, looks at you, and the look lands in the middle of the room like a small lantern that won't go out. Courage hops down and leads the way, padding toward the door with that proud little step that says, "Everything is exactly as it should be." Muriel takes your mug so you don't have to carry anything at all. Eustace lingers for a second, picks up the quilt from the sofa back, and drapes it over your shoulders like he invented kindness this evening and wants to show you how it works. He pretends it's just practicality. You let him. At the doorway, Muriel presses a biscuit into your hand wrapped in a square of paper. "Something simple for later," she says. But her eyes say this is love in a portable shape. Eustace tips his hat, then sets it back, then tips it again, a little awkward bow turned honest. "You look after that dog," he says, and then corrects himself without thinking. "We'll all look after each other." The words surprise him, and please him, and make the lamp shine a little warmer. Courage rises onto his hind paws, and rests one paw against your knee, asking for a moment that is only yours and his. You kneel, and he places a small, smooth button in your palm, the tiny heart-shaped one from downstairs. He leaves it there, certain you'll know what to do. You do. You curl your fingers around it and feel it warm to your skin. Muriel opens the door and the night leans in, not cold, not bright, just itself. The porch boards breathe. The field beyond is a soft ocean of grass, and the sky is full of quiet. For a heartbeat, no one says anything, and even the house holds its breath, proud of how gently it can be a house. Off you go, love, Muriel murmurs, the way you'd speak to a sunrise. Dreams know the way home. She smooths the quilt at your shoulders and gives the tiniest, surest pat, sealing the warmth as if it were a letter. Courage stands beside you, shoulder pressed to your ankle, and lifts his face into the soft air. He is happy. He is certain. He is love in the shape of a small pink friend. Eustace steps up on your other side, looks at Courage, looks at you, and breaks the last of the old habits with a chuckle. "Good night, Courage," he says, and then softer, so it lands where it should. "Good night, you." He reaches down and scratches that perfect spot behind Courage's ear, the easy circle he learned tonight and will remember. Courage melts, and you melt with him. You step onto the porch, and the boards give that gentle welcome. Muriel's hand lingers in yours for a heartbeat longer than necessary, gifting an extra measure of ease. She whispers the simplest blessing. Rest well. Be warm. Come back any time. Eustace awkwardly tucks a second biscuit into your pocket and tries to look annoyed about it. He fails and looks pleased instead. Courage gives a tiny, happy huff as if to stamp the moment with approval. You turn to go, and Courage turns with you. He takes 3 small steps and then stops, looks back and looks up. He doesn't want to miss the see-off. He wants to be part of the last kindness of night. Muriel and Eustace stand together in the doorway now, shoulders almost touching, the lamp behind them making a halo that fits two. Muriel lifts her fingers in a wave that feels like a lullaby. Eustace lifts his chin, proud and gentle. You lift the button to your heart and keep it there a moment, the way you might hold a promise where it can hear you. The yard opens, the sky opens, your breath opens. Everything says good night in its own language. Grass says it by settling, porch says it by holding, lamplight says it by staying, house says it by listening. Courage says it by pressing his head to your shin and then stepping back, letting you carry the quiet with you without any effort at all. And then the loving see-off begins in full. Good night from Muriel's careful hands that know how to pour warmth. Good night from Eustace's new habit of kindness, sure and simple. Good night from the lamp that keeps its promise. Good night from the quilt that remembers your shape. Good night from the soft, steady house that has room for every gentle thing. Good night from Courage, whose name is a lullaby when said like this. You walk a few steps into the soft dark and feel how the night fits. Behind you, the doorway narrows to a golden stripe and then to a small star of home. And even as it does, the feeling does not diminish. It travels with you, stitched into the quilt, tucked into the biscuit, warm in the button, steady in your ribs. You realize you are not leaving. You are carrying. The house is with you. The kindness is with you. The love is with you. Courage is with you in the way that matters most. And now the loved outro. The part that knows how to close a story while keeping it open inside you. You are loved when you're here and when you're away. You are loved in the doorway and under the sky. You are loved in quiet rooms and on quiet roads. You are loved when you're wide awake and when your eyes close. You are loved when you remember and when you only feel. You are loved simply. You are loved fully. You are loved now. Lie down wherever you are. Let the night smooth your thoughts like a hand over soft fabric. Let your jaw loosen, your shoulders settle, Your hands grow warm and still. The breath you take belongs to this house of kindness, and the breath you give back fills it with a deeper calm. Nothing is required. Nothing is missing. The world has arranged itself so you can rest. If you listen closely, you will hear Muriel humming like a warm kettle, far but near. You will hear Eustace's quiet chuckle as he pretends not to be fond. You will hear the lamp's patient glow, and the floor's gentle pride, and the button's small heartbeat in your palm, and you will hear courage, steady and happy, the sound of a friend who will meet you in every dream. Good night, dear. Good night and good night, loved and held. Good night always.